Imagine, right, you get a phone call from a commercial lender,
Okay.
and they tell you that your $1 million business loan has been denied.
Ouch. Yeah, that's a bad
It's
day.
a terrible day, but here's the kicker. It's not because your flagship product is failing,
Right.
and it's not because your revenue is low. It's because you named your PDF files wrong.
I mean, it sounds completely absurd on its face, like a joke.
It sounds like a clerical error.
Yeah, exactly. But to a commercial underwriter, someone who is processing like 50 loan applications a week, a poorly named computer file isn't just a typo.
It's not.
No, it is a flashing red siren. It's signaling this deep underlying operational chaos.
Wow. Okay, so today we are doing a deep dive into the invisible, entirely unglamorous, and completely unromantic metrics that determine whether your business is an enduring asset or just an exhausting personal hustle.
It's such a crucial distinction.
It really is. So welcome to the deep dive. Our guide today is this massive, incredibly detailed operating manual. It's titled Building a Business That Outlives You.
Yeah, and the author, John F. Hendershot, he brings a really unique triangulation to this topic.
He's got quite the resume.
He really does. I mean, he's a former commercial banker with over a decade of lending experience.
Right.
He's a multi-business owner himself, and this is cool. He served as a director at a community development financial institution.
So he's seen all sides of the table.
Exactly. He has essentially been the guy sweating over payroll at 2 a.m., and he has been the guy sitting across the desk denying the loan.
Which is the exact perspective you want.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to extract the exact systems, the metrics, and the documents that separate a fragile, founder-dependent operation from a resilient company that banks and investors actually want to fund.
It's the ultimate playbook.
Yeah. So, if you're listening right now, whether you are a startup founder prepping your data room for a seed round, or a solo operator trying to scale, or even just someone who is endlessly curious about how the economy's gears really turn behind closed doors.
Exactly. This deep dive gives you the exact lens that lenders use to evaluate success.
And that lens starts with a fairly uncomfortable premise, honestly.
Yeah, it does.
The manual opens by stating that your primary goal in business, no matter what industry you are in, is not simply to make money.
Which, I'll admit, reading that stings a little.
Right, because that's why people think they start businesses.
Exactly. But the actual goal, according to the source, is to build a machine that functions entirely without you.
Yeah.
As a founder, you pour your soul into building something. You inherently want to feel indispensable.
You want to be the hero of the story.
But the manual points out a really critical vulnerability, like if you get sick, or if you burn out, or if you simply need to step away for a month, and the income depends entirely on your daily presence.
The income just starts.
It stops.
And Hendershot frames this as a massive, unmitigated risk. When a founder is the sole engine of the business, the people who rely on that income, think about the employees relying on paychecks to cover their mortgages.
Oh, man.
Or the vendors, or even the founder's own family. They are left completely exposed.
Just totally vulnerable.
Yeah, and they're often exposed without ever having explicitly consented to that level of risk.
It is exactly like building a massive Jenga tower.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. So you have positioned yourself as the single bottom block of this Jenga tower.
Right.
As long as you are holding still and bearing all the weight, it looks incredibly impressive to the outside world.
Because the tower is huge.
Exactly. But the second you pull yourself out, even for a second, the entire structure comes crashing down on everyone around it.
That visual captures the stakes perfectly. It's terrifying.
It really is.
So to replace that bottom block, the manual advocates for relentless structure, governance, and documented processes.
All the boring stuff.
For really boring stuff. But Hendershot doesn't frame this documentation as corporate bureaucracy.
Right. He uses a different word.
He elevates it to the concept of stewardship.
Stewardship.
Yeah, it is a moral and an operational obligation to stabilize the tower.
But wait, I have to push back on this a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Doesn't all this heavy documentation completely kill your agility? The whole reason people start businesses in the first place is to escape corporate binders and endless standard operating procedures.
Right, the red tape.
Yeah. Being fast and loose is supposed to be the superpower of a startup, isn't it?
Well, so that is the widespread fear. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the reality is that relying solely on your own memory and your sheer willpower is what actually traps you.
How so?
When you are the sole bottleneck for every single operational decision, you aren't agile, you're just frantic.
Oh, wow. Frantic. That's, yeah, that's accurate.
You can't delegate effectively if the instructions only live in your head.
You literally can't hand it off.
Exactly. Documentation, as boring as it sounds, is the mechanism that allows you to hand off a process or scale it or pause it. True independence without system is just an illusion.
So, you document everything to protect your sanity and your family, and then you discover this massive secondary benefit.
Which is?
You've accidentally built the exact structure that lenders are desperately looking for.
Ah, yes.
Which is why the manual spends so much time detailing how banks actually evaluate your operation.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really eye-opening. Because banks and investors are entirely unsentimental.
They don't care about your feelings.
They do not. They are not lending to your charisma, and they aren't lending to your visionary idea.
They're lending to a system?
Exactly. They need to evaluate whether your business ecosystem can predictably repay capital under normal conditions and, more importantly, under intense stress.
And what blew my mind in this manual is how lenders evaluate that system through incredibly mundane details.
The small stuff.
Yeah. Let's circle back to that file naming scenario we opened with.
Oh, right, the rejected loan.
Yes. The manual explicitly states that when you submit documents to a bank, you must use standardized file naming.
Right.
Like formatting a file as bank name account last 4YYY-mm.pdf.
It seems so granular.
Okay, let's unpack this. Is a loan officer really going to deny me capital because I named a file taxed a final V2 instead of using ISO dates?
I get why that feels crazy.
Shouldn't my brilliant product and my massive revenue speak for themselves?
Well, you have to look at this through the underwriter's lens. Disorganized files create immediate friction.
Okay.
Imagine a credit analyst opening an email with 12 differently named PDFs.
Just a mess of attachments.
Right. Tax stuff, final V2, scan document 4, Q3 maybe final.
If I'm an analyst looking at that, I'm thinking, if this is how they handle the vital documents they're using to bug us for $1 million, how on earth are they handling their inventory tracking or their payroll taxing?
Exactly. The perception of chaos becomes very real.
It's a huge red flag.
And it increases the underwriting cycle time because the analyst has to spend hours just organizing your life before they can even look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Clear, standardized file naming communicates long-term stewardship silently.
Silently. I like that.
It proves there is discipline in the back office without you ever having to say a single word.
That makes so much sense. And the manual also lists several non-negotiable trust signals that seem purely bureaucratic.
Oh, yeah.
Things like having a clean DUNS number, which is essentially like a social security number for your business issued by Dun & Bradstreet.
Right.
Or having an accurate NAICS or SIC code,
Yeah.
which tells the government exactly what industry you operate in.
Crucial details.
It even mentions having a Better Business Bureau or BBB profile. And it notes it doesn't even need to be a paid accreditation, just a free profile.
Just being in the system.
Right. But how do those actually move the needle for a loan officer?
Well, they are vital mechanisms for automated risk reduction.
Automated, like algorithm.
Exactly. Banks process thousands of applications. They just don't have time to manually investigate every single company's backstory.
Right.
So they use software that automatically cross-references these databases to flag discrepancies before a human even reviews the file.
Oh. So if your NAICS code officially classifies you as, say, a B2B software company,
Okay.
but the automated review of your bank deposits shows hundreds of irregular $15 point-of-sale transactions.
The algorithm halts the underwriting immediately.
He shuts it down.
Yeah, because to the system, it either looks like you have fundamentally misunderstood what business you're in,
Which is bad.
or worse, it looks like money laundering.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be a hard no.
Right. So ensuring absolute consistency across these boring bureaucratic identifiers proves you are a legitimate entity interacting transparently with the commercial credit system.
It's all about proving you exist as a real thing.
Exactly. It proves the business exists as a standalone entity independent of your personal identity.
Man, if you're a founder listening to this right now, you really need to take a hard look at your own data room or your company's shared drive.
Seriously.
Are you communicating chaos? Or are you signaling predictable stewardship?
That's the million-dollar question, literally.
Because once your paperwork proves you are a legitimate, organized system, the next major hurdle is figuring out what type of money that system actually needs.
And Hendershot provides a very stark capital decision tree for this.
Yeah, let's dig into that.
It all comes down to the predictability of your cash flow.
Yeah.
If your business can predictably repay capital from its existing operations, you take the debt path.
So that means commercial banks, SBA loans, or CDFIs.
Exactly. But if you cannot predictably repay, or if you need massive loss coverage because you are intentionally burning cash to achieve rapid scale,
Like a tech startup.
right, then you take the equity path. That means angel investors, venture capital, or private equity.
I really like thinking about the difference this way. Taking equity is basically like getting married.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. You're giving up a piece of legal control, you're sharing the house, and you are locked in together for the long haul, for better or worse.
You're in it together.
You really have to align your entire life vision with your investor.
Yeah.
Taking debt, on the other hand, is like renting a car.
Okay, I follow.
You pay for the utility of it, it gets you to your destination, and when you're done, you return the keys and walk away with your ownership totally intact.
The marriage metaphor is particularly strong because it highlights the necessity of alignment.
What happens when they aren't aligned?
Well, imagine a founder asks for venture capital when they really just need a bank loan for equipment.
Like a local bakery buying a new oven.
Yes. If you go to a VC firm to finance a standard piece of manufacturing equipment for a stable bakery, the alignment is completely broken.
Because they want different things.
Exactly. VCs structure their funds to require massive 10x exits to justify the inherent risk of their portfolio.
Right, they need unicorns.
They have zero interest in a slow, steady 5% margin business.
Even if it's profitable.
Even if it's profitable, they will push you to grow at an unnatural, potentially fatal rate.
And the reverse is true as well. I see founders asking banks for capital for general growth all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They think it sounds ambitious. But the manual implies that phrase actually terrifies a commercial lender. Why does general growth send them running?
Because banks are entirely in the business of predictable risk, not venture speculation.
They want sure things.
They do not want to fund an experiment. General growth sounds to an underwriter like you are going to throw their capital at unproven marketing campaigns or vague expansion plans and just, hope for the best.
And banks don't run on hope.
No, they do not. They want to know exactly what tangible asset is being purchased. A delivery truck, a commercial building, a specific piece of software, and exactly how that specific asset will generate the cash to pay them back.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And the manual also explicitly warns against seeking capital at all if your actual bottleneck is poor unit economics or low demand.
Yes. This is a crucial.
Hendershot writes, capital amplifies flaws.
It's so true.
If you are losing 50 cents on every single unit you sell because your margins are broken, $1 million loan just guarantees you will lose $1 million at lightning speed.
It is a very necessary reality check. Capital does not fix a broken business model. It only accelerates it.
Just makes you crash faster.
Right. Now, for businesses that might not perfectly fit the traditional commercial bank mold yet, perhaps due to lack of operating history or being located in an underserved market, the manual highlights a crucial alternative on the debt path.
Right. CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions.
Yes.
We definitely need to dig into those because they seem like a hidden cheat code for entrepreneurs who feel locked out of the traditional system.
They really are. They are essentially mission-driven lenders, often operating as nonprofits or community credit unions.
Okay.
And they are specifically designed to step into the funding gaps that traditional, heavily regulated commercial banks ignore.
So who do they focus on?
They focus on minority entrepreneurs, rural markets, or specific local economic development goals.
It's amazing.
And what makes them so valuable is that they offer flexible underwriting.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning they might look past a slightly lower personal credit score or a shorter time in business.
Okay.
And, even better, they provide direct technical assistance to help founders build those boring, resilient systems we've been discussing.
Oh, so they actually help you get your files named correct.
Exactly. They build you up.
But whether you're going to a standard commercial bank or a CDFI, the manual says everything on the debt path ultimately relies on one golden mathematical metric.
The DSCR.
Right, the debt service coverage ratio. And lenders universally want to see a minimum of 1.25x.
Yes, 1.25.
What is the real-world mechanism behind that number? Let's break down the math.
Sure. So the DSCR is the ultimate test of a business's financial pulse. The math is straightforward but critical. A 1.25x DSCR Means that for every single dollar of debt obligation you have, meaning your combined principal and interest payments, your business generates $1.25 in available cash flow from its operations.
So, if I'm understanding this, you hand the dollar over to the bank to satisfy the loan,
Right.
and you get to keep the 25 cents as a buffer against disaster.
That 25-cent buffer is everything.
Really? Just 25 cents.
It proves to the bank that even if your supply chain costs fluctuate or a client pays late, you still have the breathing room to make your loan payments without defaulting.
But here's the kicker. To prove you hit that 1.25 DSCR, lenders aren't just going to take your word for it.
Definitely not.
You can't just slide a colorful pitch deck across the mahogany table and promise them you're good for it,
No, they need to forensically audit that cash flow.
which forces you to generate entirely different paperwork than what you typically give the IRS.
Yes. The skepticism of lenders requires a bulletproof paper trail.
The ultimate paper trail of truth.
Exactly. For operating businesses, they demand a document called a T12, which stands for the trailing 12 months operating statement.
I was initially really confused by this requirement.
How so?
Well, if I've already handed the bank 3 years of my finalized CPA-prepared tax returns, why do I have to generate a completely separate T12? Don't both documents track the exact same money moving through the same business?
It's a great question. But the intent behind those two documents is entirely opposed.
Suppose.
Yes, which is why lenders need both. Tax returns are summarized specifically for the IRS.
Okay.
Your CPA is essentially paid to maximize your deductions, claim every ounce of allowable depreciation, and legally show the smallest possible taxable profit at the end of the year.
Right. So you actively try to look broke on paper to save on taxes.
Yes,
But that makes you look terrible to an underwriter who needs to see cash flow.
exactly the problem. A T12 strips away all that clever tax strategy.
Oh, I see.
It adds back things like depreciation and amortization to show the raw, actual month-to-month heartbeat of the business.
It reveals the true net operating income, or NOI.
Yes. It shows the underwriter if your revenue is highly seasonal, it pinpoints exactly when massive expenses hit your accounts.
And it proves, with historical facts, not optimistic projections, whether that cash flow is actually stable enough to support a 1.25x DSCR year-round.
Precisely. And it gets even more intense if your business relies on real estate or physical assets.
Right, the real estate side.
Lenders want a rent roll to see exactly who is paying what in your building.
But the document that is absolutely fascinating to me is the tenant estoppel certificate.
Oh, the estoppel certificate is a masterclass in risk management and misaligned incentives.
It really is. It functions almost like a financial lie detector test for the landlord, but it's administered by the tenant.
That is a perfect description.
How does that actually work mechanically in a real estate transaction?
Well, the mechanism is brilliant because it recognizes human nature.
Right.
The landlord has a massive financial incentive to exaggerate their rent income to the bank in order to qualify for a bigger loan.
Like, oh yeah, they pay me 10 grand a month, when really it's 5.
Exactly. So by forcing the tenant to sign an estoppel certificate, the bank bypasses the landlord's claims entirely.
They just ask the tenant directly.
Yes. The document legally requires the tenant themselves to confirm in writing, yes, my rent is exactly this amount, my lease expires on this specific date, and no, the landlord didn't promise me 3 free months of rent under the table.
So the bank transfers the legal liability of the truth away from the person asking for the money, the landlord,
Right.
and places it squarely onto the person actually paying the rent.
Yes. It legally prevents or stops the tenant from later claiming different lease terms if the bank ever has to foreclose.
It completely closes the loophole of secret side deals.
Completely closes it. And once the lender has all this bulletproof reality, the T12s, the estoppels, the rent rolls, they subject your business to something called stress testing.
Stress testing. This is where they play out the nightmare scenarios, right?
Oh, yeah.
They recalculate your DSCR under horrible conditions just to see what happens.
They intentionally try to break your financial model.
It sounds kind of brutal.
It is. They look at your numbers and say, okay, your DSCR is a healthy 1.25x today. But what happens if a major client leaves and your overall revenue drops 10%?
Or what happens if the broader economy shifts and interest rates spike 200 basis points tomorrow?
Exactly. They want to find out exactly what breaks first and how bloody it gets when it does.
Because capital is just a transfer of risk.
Yes. And the lender needs to know if the bridge stands when a Category 5 hurricane hits.
You know, it reframes the whole concept of bureaucracy for me.
How so?
These rigid, sometimes incredibly tedious documents, the stress tests, the estoppels, the T12s, even the standardized file names. They aren't just annoying hoops to jump through to appease a banker.
No, they're not.
They are the actual structural building blocks that form a fortress around the business itself.
That's beautifully put. They force the founder to look at their operation not as a chaotic daily hustle, but as an enduring standalone asset.
Man, we have covered so much ground today.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But building a business is clearly not just about having a visionary product or outworking your competition.
Right.
It is about engineering a system that outlives your daily, exhausting involvement.
Yeah.
Whether you are prepping for a crucial investor meeting, evaluating a company's health before a merger, or building your own startup in your garage, looking through this lender's lens forces you to trade a fragile hustle for a durable asset.
It's the ultimate shift in mindset.
It really is. It forces you to start being the solitary climber clinging to the cliff face by your fingertips and start being the engineer designing a bridge that can carry the weight of the world.
Making that transition is arguably the hardest psychological phase of entrepreneurship, but it is the only path to true sustainability.
Absolutely.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought to mull over today.
Go for it.
If you were to walk away from your current project, your team, or your business tomorrow morning, how long would it take for the first crack to show? What is the very first system or process that would fail without your constant supervision? Because whatever that single point of failure is, that is exactly where your true legacy work begins.
That is an incredibly powerful question to end on. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Take a hard look at your systems, keep connecting the dots, and start building your bridge.